When I came to San Francisco to forget the past, I didn't plan on meeting Liam, my new neighbor, my new beginning. What began as silence between two strangers turned into something more frightening than any judgment. I trusted him more than I had any right to. And the moment he held my hand, his mother stood in the doorway, and she saw everything. The first time Chris touched me, it wasn't on purpose. At least, I don't think it was. I had just moved in 2 days earlier, into a third-floor apartment with flickering lights, chipped tiles, and a stranger named Chris, who spoke like he knew the ending to every story before it started. He barely glanced up when I arrived, just muttered, "You must be Jamie," and kept hammering away at a crooked shelf like the outcome mattered more than introductions. We weren't supposed to talk much, just split rent, keep things civil, avoid politics. That's what the ad said. Quiet place, easy roommate, no drama. I didn't realize how fast quiet could turn into loud. It was the second night when the power went out. Storm overhead, sudden and angry. I sat on the couch pretending to read, hoping the candlelight would make me look busy. Chris tossed me a flashlight and said, "Congrats, you're part of the blackout club now. First rule, we pretend it's fun." He sat too close. I noticed. He didn't. Or maybe he did. He smelled like rain and laundry soap. Not expensive, but real, like someone who works with his hands and forgets to care what it means. He asked what I studied. I told him I was still figuring it out. He said that was brave. I said it was broke. We laughed. Then we didn't. There was a beat of silence that should have ended, but instead stretched. He looked at me like he was seeing something I didn't know I was showing. "You're not like I expected," he said quietly. "Good or bad? Just not invisible." That night I stayed up too long thinking about what that meant. The next morning he made coffee before I got up, said nothing, just handed me a mug, his fingers brushing mine, then walked off like that hadn't happened. But I felt it, every inch of that contact. That's when it started. Week 3, we collided in the hallway. He reached past me for his keys and our shoulders bumped. He apologized. I laughed, too loud. He looked at me, not like a joke, like a question, but he didn't ask it. Later that night, we watched a movie, some bad comedy with a laugh track louder than the script. We shared a blanket because the heater died again, and neither of us said the obvious thing. Halfway through, he shifted closer. I didn't move, neither did he, and suddenly the movie didn't matter. Afterward, we stood up like nothing happened. He stretched, scratched the back of his neck and said, "Don't read too much into it. I just get cold easy." I nodded. Sure, but I did read into it, and I kept reading every moment that followed. 2 nights later, he came home drunk, not wasted, just unraveling at the edges. His smile was slower, his words softer. "Lock myself out," he mumbled. I let him in. He dropped his jacket on the floor and wandered toward the hallway. I turned to close the door and heard, "I'm crashing here." By the time I looked back, he was already on my bed, face down, shoes still on. "Seriously?" I asked. No answer. I should have pushed him off. I didn't. Instead, I took off his shoes, covered him with the blanket, and sat in the chair across the room. Watching the shape of him sleep, he muttered something. Maybe my name. Maybe not. But I held on to it like it meant something. I stayed up the whole night, pretending it didn't. The next morning, he acted like it didn't happen. "You've got a weird mattress," he said, yawning. "You slept on top of the blanket." He laughed. "That explains it." Then he made eggs, burned them, and said, "Guess I owe you breakfast." I didn't want breakfast. I wanted clarity, but clarity never showed up. Only more days like that. One day I came home early and heard music from his room. Not loud, but soft. Like he forgot anyone else lived there. I paused outside his door. Then he started singing along. Not well, but honestly. I didn't know whether to smile or run. He made it so easy to care. That was the problem. It wasn't the touches or the glances or the half jokes he didn't finish. It was the way he let me exist in his space like I belonged there. Like I wasn't temporary. And that terrified me more than anything. Because I knew how stories like this ended. One person pretends it never happened. The other stays awake replaying every second. And I was already doing that. Every night, Chris started leaving earlier in the mornings. No more shared coffee, no more music from his room, just the sound of boots at 6 a.m. and the front door clicking shut like a line being drawn. I told myself it was work. I told myself I was imagining things. I told myself a lot of things. But when he walked past me in the hallway without a glance, I stopped pretending I believed any of them. We became polite strangers again, the kind who ask, "Hey, all good?" and don't wait for the answer. He smiled less, talked less. Sometimes it felt like he wasn't even in the apartment, just a shadow passing through. Until Wednesday. I was finishing dinner. He came in, dropped his bag louder than usual, and went straight for the sink. His eyes landed on the pile of dishes I hadn't touched. Not many, just a pan and 2 plates. He didn't yell, didn't even raise his voice. He just said, "You couldn't rinse them?" I turned slowly. I was in class, then writing. I planned to. He let out a short laugh. "Of course. You're always planning something." "What's that supposed to mean?" He dried his hands. "Nothing, just, you right. I clean. That's the rhythm now?" I felt heat rise in my chest. "You could have just said something." "I'm saying it now." "No," I said, sharper than I meant to. "You're snapping because you've been weird for 2 weeks and don't want to admit it." He froze, then turned to face me fully. "Weird? Yeah, you avoid me. You barely talk. You flinch when I walk into a room. If you have a problem, just say it." There was a pause, just long enough to be dangerous. Then, "Why do you look at me like that?" I blinked. "Like what?" "Like you're waiting for something. Like I'm supposed to do or say something I don't even understand." The words weren't loud, but they hit harder than yelling. I could have denied it, could have said he was overthinking, but my mouth was tired of lying. Because I don't know how not to. He closed his eyes, just for a second. Then he grabbed his keys and left. The door shut hard enough to rattle the frame. The apartment was too quiet after that, his jacket still on the chair, his charger still plugged in near the couch. All the things that said I live here, except him. I stopped writing. I stopped eating much. I tried to sleep, but all I could see was the look in his eyes when he said, "Don't." By the 3rd night, I knew I couldn't stay. I packed slowly, a hoodie, a few books, my laptop. I wasn't running away. I was stepping back, giving him space. That's what I told myself. I was folding a t-shirt when I found the note, just sitting there, on my pillow. One line, his messy handwriting. "Don't go, please." No explanation, no name, no promise. But I couldn't stop staring at it. My chest felt too full and too empty all at once. I sat on the bed, note in hand, and waited. I didn't know for what. The next morning I heard the door open. Footsteps. A pause in the hall. Then, "Jamie?" I looked up. He stood there, damp from the rain, eyes darting between the half-packed bag and the note in my hand. "You were really gonna leave. You didn't want me here." "That's not true. You stopped looking at me." He stepped inside, quiet. "Because when I did, it scared me." "Why?" "Because it felt like falling." Silence stretched again. But this one felt different. Not final. Not angry. Just scared. "I don't know what this is," he said. "You don't have to. I never asked you to." "But it feels like something," he whispered. I nodded. "Yeah." His eyes dropped to the note still in my fingers. "I meant it." I folded it slowly, carefully. "I know." We stood there, not touching, not even breathing right. But something between us started to settle, like gravity shifting, like silence making room. He didn't say he loved me. I didn't ask. But for the first time in weeks, we weren't pretending nothing was wrong. We just weren't pretending at all. The truce that followed wasn't peace. It was waiting. Chris came home like he was entering a room that might explode. Careful steps, half-said greetings, a glance that never landed long enough. I unpacked slowly, one drawer at a time, not because I had changed my mind, but because I was scared he would. We didn't talk about the note, or the fight, or the tension so thick it made the heater seem like background noise. We lived like that for days, paused, until Thursday night. The storm hit hard, same as the last time. The power died with a sound like surrender. Wind howled through the window frame, and somewhere outside, the city disappeared in the dark. I stayed in my room listening. Then came the knock. Soft, one tap, then two. I opened the door. Chris stood barefoot, hoodie sleeves pulled over his fists like he was holding something in. "I've been trying to figure out what's wrong with me," he said. The words dropped between us like they weighed something. "You want to come in?" I asked. He nodded. In the dim candlelight, he sat on the edge of my bed, back bent, hands clasped. "I keep thinking if I stay busy, if I keep working, I'll outrun it. But it's always here. You're always here." He glanced up. "Every time I walk into a room, it's like my head already knows where you are." I didn't speak. He looked down again. "And I hate it, because it makes me feel like I don't know who I am anymore." "That's not hate," I said quietly. "That's fear." He exhaled, slow and shaky. "Same thing sometimes." "No. Hate pushes people away. Fear just asks too many questions." He swallowed. "I have a lot of those." "You don't need all the answers right now." "I don't even have one." "Then just start with the truth." He looked at me like that was the scariest request I'd ever made. "I'm scared," he said. "Of what?" He hesitated. "That if I touch this, if I touch you, I won't be able to pretend anymore." I stared at him, breath shallow. "Then don't pretend." His hand lifted, slowly. Like gravity fought him. His fingers brushed my cheek, light, hesitant. "I don't know what this means," he whispered. "Neither do I." He smiled, just barely. "Good. Then maybe we can be lost together." The first kiss wasn't even a kiss, just a breath between us, the idea of one. But the second, soft, real, careful like it might break us if we moved too fast. He held the back of my neck like he didn't know if he was allowed. I didn't stop him. We stayed like that, not rushing, not speaking. When we pulled apart, he rested his forehead against mine. "I didn't plan this," he murmured. "I know." "I thought I was straight." "I know that too." He laughed once, broken and soft. "Guess I'm not." I didn't correct him, didn't try to define it, because what he needed wasn't a label. It was safety. He sat back, rubbing his hands together. "I'm so bad at this." "At what?" "Letting people in." "You let me in the night you fell asleep in my bed." His eyes met mine. "I didn't mean to." "But you didn't leave either." Silence again. He reached for my hand. Fingers awkward at first, then steady. "I don't know what happens now," he said. "Nothing has to happen. We're here. Here's good." His grip tightened. Not hard. Just enough to say he didn't want to let go. We didn't sleep. We talked. He told me about his dad, how silence was the only language in their house, how he learned to fix things instead of feel them, how he dated girls because that's what was expected, how every time one left, it felt like something was missing, but he could never explain what. I told him about the waiting, the watching, the way I held my breath around people who didn't know, the nights I'd lie awake, wondering if I'd ever stop feeling like a secret. Sometimes we didn't talk at all. We just listened, to the storm, to our breathing, to the quiet that wasn't empty anymore. At one point he whispered, "You make me feel calm, and also like I'm coming apart." I smiled in the dark. Then I guess we're both in pieces. By morning the storm had passed, but something stayed. He leaned against me on the bed, half asleep. His voice came out rough. "I feel like I can breathe again." "Then don't stop." He turned his head, looked at me, eyes still heavy. "You're dangerous," he said. "How so?" "You make honesty feel easy." The lights flickered back on. He blinked, sat up slowly. "Reality's rude." I laughed. "Yeah," he said, reaching for my hand again. "So is this." But even with that, we didn't call it anything. Not love, not dating, not even a thing. Just something real, something that finally stopped hiding in the dark. But the world doesn't always wait for you to be ready. And part of me already knew something was coming, and we couldn't stay in this quiet forever. For a while, everything was quiet, the kind of quiet that doesn't demand explanation. Chris still worked long hours. I still wrote late into the night. But now we existed in the same space, not avoiding it. He'd sit beside me without asking. I'd lean into him without thinking. Sometimes we held hands. Sometimes we didn't. It wasn't perfect, but it was real, until the world outside noticed. It started with his brother. Saturday morning, knock at the door. Chris answered in a half laugh, half sigh. Noah, what are you doing here? Passing through, the guy said, stepping in like he owned the place. Wanted to say, hey, you said you had a roommate? He looked at me. This him? I nodded, extending a hand. Jamie. He shook it fast. Too fast. Then scanned the room. His eyes landed on the half-finished mug on the table. Mine. Next to Chris's. Side by side. He didn't say anything, but the air shifted. Nice place, he muttered. Cozy. Chris scratched the back of his neck. Yeah, it works. Noah stayed 20 minutes. Small talk, sports, work. I barely spoke. Chris barely looked at me. When his brother left, he didn't close the door right away. Just stood there, staring into the hallway. You good? I asked. He didn't answer. Just nodded once and walked into his room. That night, he didn't sit next to me. Didn't touch me. Barely said a word. I waited. Until I couldn't. Are we going to talk about it? He looked up from his phone. Talk about what? Don't do that. He exhaled slowly. It's not you. I know. He stared at the ceiling. He knows something's up. He didn't say it, but I could feel it. So? So I don't know what I'm doing, Jamie. His voice cracked slightly. I've never had to explain something I don't understand yet. You don't owe anyone a definition. But they'll ask for one anyway. I looked at him carefully. Do you regret it? No. His answer was fast, but what followed was slower, quieter. I just didn't think I'd have to answer questions this soon, or at all. The next week was strange. He wasn't cold, just careful, like every move had to be measured now. We still touched, still talked, but it felt like something had curled in on itself. Not broken, just hiding. I tried not to let it eat at me, but one night I asked, so what are we then? He didn't answer right away, just sat there, lips pressed tight, as if naming it would make it heavier. I don't know. That's not enough anymore. He looked at me finally. I'm trying, okay? I'm trying to be okay with what this is. But it's hard when I've spent my whole life avoiding anything that looked like this. You're not the only one scared, Chris. I know that. Then stop acting like you're carrying it alone. His jaw clenched. What do you want from me? Honesty. You have it. Not when you flinch every time someone might notice. Silence again. Then, I don't want to lose this. I just don't know how to keep it without losing everything else. 2 days later, we were at a party. His coworker invited him. He said I should come. I said yes before thinking. It was loud, crowded, too many people who knew him. We stuck close, but not too close. No one asked who I was. No one needed to. They just looked, then looked away. At one point, Chris stepped outside to take a call. I stayed in the kitchen, pretending to scroll through my phone. When he came back, something in his face had shifted. You okay? I asked. He nodded, but his eyes were tight. That was Noah. I waited. He asked if you were more than a roommate. What did you say? Chris hesitated. I told him no. I nodded once. It felt like a slap, but I didn't let it show. Okay. He reached for my arm. Jamie, it's fine. It's not. Then why did you say it? Because I panicked. Because I'm still figuring this out. Because I don't know how to be two things at once. You don't have to be two things. You just have to be you. And I don't know who that is right now. I pulled my arm back gently. Figure it out. Then I walked outside. And for the first time in weeks, I didn't wait for him to follow. That night, we rode home in silence. I didn't sleep. He didn't try. The next morning, he left early. The mug was still warm when I found it, but the air in the apartment felt colder than it had in months. Chris didn't call that day, or the next. I left the apartment twice just to breathe, to stop staring at the same coffee cup, the same empty chair. When I came back, nothing had moved. Not the silence, not him. By the third day, I started packing, not out of anger, just reality. He wasn't ready, and maybe that was the whole answer. The morning I was set to leave, I didn't leave a note. I figured if he wanted to talk, he would have. I zipped the last bag, closed the door to my room, turned toward the hallway, and found him standing there, hair a mess, barefoot, a look in his eyes like he hadn't slept. "I thought you'd be gone already," he said. "I was trying to be quiet." He nodded but didn't move. "You packed everything?" "Yeah." He looked down, hands clenched at his sides. Then quietly, "I don't want you to go." I didn't respond. He stepped forward. "I know I messed up. I know what I said to Noah hurt you. I've thought about it every hour since." "I'm not mad," I said. "I'm just tired." "I get that." He took another step. "I panicked because I saw what was happening, and I realized it wasn't temporary anymore. That scared me. Not because it felt wrong, but because it didn't." My throat tightened. He continued, voice shaking. "I told myself I could keep this part of me separate, that I didn't need to explain it to anyone. But all that did was keep me from living it." "I didn't need a label," I said. "I know, but I needed one. Not to define us, just to remind myself I wasn't making it up." He exhaled. "I've never had something feel like home and fear at the same time. You made both happen, and I didn't know what to do with that." I waited. He looked at me finally, eyes clear. "But I do now." I didn't speak. I wanted to, but I couldn't move yet. He stepped closer again. "I don't know what this is, but I know I want it, out loud, no more half versions, no more lying to people so I can feel safe." Silence stretched, and then, "I told Noah the truth." My heart stopped. Chris nodded. "I called him yesterday, told him you're not just my roommate, told him I care about you, told him I'm figuring it out and I'm not ashamed of that." I blinked. "What did he say?" "He said, 'Okay.' That was it. Like it was nothing. Like I hadn't built a whole prison in my head over something that never needed bars." He let out a laugh, small, almost disbelieving. "I think I needed his permission, but the truth is, I didn't. I just needed to stop hiding from myself." He looked at my bag. "Are you still leaving?" I opened my mouth, closed it, then asked, "Are you going to pretend again next time someone asks?" "No." I waited. "And not just because I'm trying to be brave, but because I'm tired too, of acting like I don't want this, like I don't want you." He reached for my hand. His grip was nervous but steady. "I'm not promising perfect, but I'm promising real." I looked at our hands, then back at him. "You're late," I said. "I know. I almost left." "I know that too." I smiled finally. "Then help me unpack." He smiled back. "Only if you let me mess it up." Later that day, we sat by the window. The city moved outside fast as ever. Inside, we didn't say much, just existed, together. He didn't kiss me in front of anyone. He didn't post about us. He didn't declare anything. But when his phone buzzed and he silenced it without checking, just to keep sitting beside me, I knew it was enough. We're still figuring it out. He still burns eggs. I still overthink. We fight sometimes, about small things. Who left the light on? Whose turn it is to clean the bathroom? But now when we touch, it's not hesitation, it's choice. Now when someone asks who I am to him, he doesn't stutter. Now when he looks at me, it doesn't feel like maybe. It feels like yes. We're not a label. We're not a secret. We're a story that didn't need to be perfect to be worth telling. And when I look back, I don't remember the silence or the fear. I remember the moment he stood in the hallway and said, "I just don't want to keep pretending."